Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. My girlfriend has a very rocky relationship with her mom. This is due to a variety of reasons, but one of the major ones is that her mom cursed her with a horribly misspelled name. Something like Hey Zelma Hooray Mom's last name. It's not those exact names, but the same type of vibe. Two classic, beautiful names ruined by her mother's pathological desire to be unique. Her parents weren't together at the time of her birth, and she ended up with her mom's last name. This has caused so many problems throughout her life since her dad ended up being her primary parent, and she's told me that she's wanted to change it since she started going to school and having to deal with the problems. The only reason she waited until she was an adult is because her mom wouldn't consent to the name change. Anyway, the paperwork recently went through and my girlfriend is now Hazel Marie Dad's last name. She's over the moon about it and I'm so happy for her. The only hiccup has been her mama. We expected her to be upset that her baby girl is deviating from her mommy's wishes, but we didn't expect she'd explode like she did. My girlfriend told her mom the news and she absolutely blew up. She actually stormed over to our apartment. She lives in the same building as us. It sucks. And banged on our door until my girlfriend reluctantly answered. I advised her not to, but she did it anyway because, and I quote, "It's my mom, let me talk to her." Oh well. My girlfriend's mom barged her way into the apartment and began loudly berating my girlfriend for changing her name. She basically said that my girlfriend threw away the beautiful gift I gave you and said, "You're my daughter, I have the right to name you." She wasn't even really upset about her taking her dad's last name, but she was really upset about her changing the spellings of her first and middle name to the normal spelling. My girlfriend tried to explain about all the problems her name had caused her over the years, but her mom wouldn't let her speak and just kept yelling over her. Eventually, I, much taller and stronger than my GF's mom, forcibly kicked her out while calling her a witch and telling her never to come back. My girlfriend and I are now looking at breaking our lease to get away from her. Message from my girlfriend that she wanted me to add. Please don't give your kids crappy names. No one thinks it's quirky or cute. You look like an idiot and little Mike Kinley probably resents you for it. Do everyone a favor and just spell your kids' names like they're supposed to be. Take it from someone with a shitty name. It sucks ass to deal with. You're naming a human person, not a doll or puppy. I've lived in the Los Feliz area for 10 years now. I came to LA from Oregon to attend college. I never did finish college, but I did meet my husband here. I'm 34 now. My husband Jim, 41, and I run a small craft store. We also play music in a band. Jim is also an architect part-time. Neither the store nor the band earn a lot of money, but it's enough. We mostly depend on Jim's architect job. Still, we could use more income, so we decided to take on a tenant in our house. We bought a 2-bedroom bungalow where one of the bedrooms actually has its own private entrance. My husband made alterations to make it its own small apartment, since it already had a private bathroom. It didn't initially have a shower, but my husband built one for it. There was no proper kitchen, but my husband fashioned a little nook where he installed a mini fridge, hot plate, and microwave. Over the past 4 years, we had a couple of really nice tenants, usually college students who stayed for their year-long lease, then moved on. Everyone paid their rent on time and didn't ruin the room. Kevin was a different matter. Kevin was this 30-year-old bartender who worked at a local club. He seemed clean-cut and like he wouldn't cause any trouble. And since he was older than the college students we had before, we assumed he would be even more responsible. We couldn't have been more wrong. After about 4 months that passed without incident, suddenly Kevin began to be a terrible tenant. He'd play music really loud late at night and make our neighbors call the police. We live in a quiet neighborhood. He'd bring home women, which is his right because it's his home and he's paying, but they'd talk super loudly late into the night and drink out on the porch, and once again cause neighbors to call the police because they just wouldn't shut up. I talked to Kevin about it, and he laughed in my face. He kind of had a different attitude toward my husband when my husband confronted him about it, because Jim would break this guy's jaw. But even though Kevin apologized a few days later, he'd go right back to doing it. He also got into the habit of smoking marijuana on the porch and would smoke so much of it that the neighbors would once again complain. He would pay his rent, but instead of paying it on the first of the month as one might expect, he was often late by several days, or would ask favors from us that we would take half the rent on the first, the other half on the 15th to coincide with his paydays. He would often pretend to have paid and claim that he left the check under our door when that was clearly a lie. We accommodated him and tried to be patient. He was only on a 6-month lease, so after those 6 months, my husband told him he had to leave. Kevin complained that we were being racist against him. Kind of weird seeing as how we are all white in this story, but Kevin has convinced himself that he's black. Anyways, he said he'd move out, but that we had to give him time. That's fair enough. We gave him all the legal papers that said he had to vacate within a certain number of days. At the end of that time, he still wasn't gone, and he didn't look like he had plans to leave. He would rant about squatters' rights and all that. This whole time, he would continue to play loud music, smoke weed outside, bring home his friends and talk loudly late into the night, and make a nuisance of himself. Finally, after 6 months had passed and he had been staying half a year without paying us a cent, he moved out. My husband and I learned our lesson. He knocked down the wall he built, and now we live in a 2-bedroom small house again, to ourselves. But Kevin didn't leave in good order. He snuck out because he knew he owed us several months of rent. He left no forwarding address. He stopped answering texts. What he did leave was a huge mess. He also stole a nice Keurig coffee machine that we put in his apartment for his use, and he also stole the mini fridge and microwave. He left the hot plate, but he pretty much destroyed that too because it looked like he tried cooking drugs on it. It looked like he picked up most of his personal stuff, but his clumsy, sloppy self didn't check behind all of his little nooks and crannies, and we saw he had abandoned lots of his little drug paraphernalia. We boxed up all of these little items in a single box and labeled it with his name in case he ever wanted to claim them. My husband also went to the local courthouse to see about filing small claims on Kevin, but we didn't even know where he lived now. My husband isn't a narc type who snitches, bless his heart. He was of the opinion, oh, this is a learning experience. Let's do differently from now on. But I'm not that way, and I don't want us to get ripped off without a bit of revenge. Kevin never really told us exactly which bar he works at, because he's a lying little weasel. But in his loud conversations late at night while he's off talking like he's Charles friggin' Barkley, I overheard him name the bar he worked at. So one day, about 5 days after Kevin left, I drove over there and asked about him to the people who work there. I don't let on that I'm one of his former landlords. The new bartender girl assumes that I'm some sort of jilted lover, and I roll with it. She empathizes with me, and in talking about what a jerk Kevin is, she lets me know that the whole time he's been in the LA area, he's been going to school to become a licensed vocational nurse. I told her that he blocked me on social media. No problem, she tells me. She whips out her phone and shows me his profile, which is set to private, but she is friends with him on social media. I see that he moved to Nevada and is now practicing as an Elvin at a clinic. I thank the girl and go home. Now that I know where he works, I call the clinic and casually confirm that Kevin indeed works there. My guess is that Kevin probably had to take a drug test to get his job, but he still had friends over at his place doing lots of illegal stuff. Or maybe he borrowed someone else's urine, who knows. I find out the name of his supervisor, and once again calling the clinic, pretending to be a customer, I casually confirm that this man is Kevin's boss. I then take the box of Kevin's stuff with all of his drug paraphernalia in it to the local police station, with the explanation that Kevin used to be a tenant of mine and my husband's, but that he abandoned his quarters, and also this box of his personal effects. I look like a friggin' kindergarten teacher, and to the cop it's obvious I have no idea what any of this stuff is. I tell the police I have no idea of Kevin's forwarding address, just his address of employment, and oh, I even have the number of his boss. I don't know how these things work, officer. Could you handle it? Of course, miss, that's our job. So, a month later, my husband and I are still out of Keurig and 6 months of unpaid rent from Kevin. But I kept calling the clinic again, pretending to be a relative and asking, may I speak to Kevin? Oh, Kevin doesn't work here anymore. Didn't he tell you? He got fired? Sheesh, this secretary kind of overshares, but it works out in my favor here. I also found out by talking to that officer again that the marijuana wasn't such a big deal, but that the possession of the hard drug paraphernalia was a big misdemeanor. My husband, who knows about what I did by this time and is fully on board, comes with me to the station, and we sign an affidavit regarding what we know about all the stuff in the box. They had contacted Kevin, and under pressure from the police in ours and in his new state, he finally admitted that the items were his. After, of course, trying at first to lie and claim that the drug items were mine and my husband's. Jerk. So now the misdemeanors are on his permanent record, rendering him unemployable in his field. We also found out his address, and he was served with papers for small claims court for several months' worth of rent, theft, and damages. He was a no-show. Automatic victory for us. My husband and I went to the bar where Kevin used to work, and since she recognized me, the new bartender girl gave me a big hug. I admitted to her that I wasn't a girlfriend of Kevin's, but that he was a tenant who screwed over my husband and I. The girl thought that what I did was great to get him busted. Speaking of busted, he was charged with possession at his new apartment and is in jail now. This happened Wednesday, and it's just so hilariously stupid to me, I just had to share. You can be the judge on how stupid it is. Now I, 34M, stated in a previous post that I work with the famous Mart of Walls, but I had moved apartments between the setting of the previous post and now, opting for the workout of the online grocery department over the constant barrage of customers wanting their cold cuts. Depending on the day, I'm either in the back to set up for the pickups and deliveries or putting the orders in the customers' vehicles, or out on the floor, picking the items for the orders. There are various commodities for paths, ranging from the general merchandise to frozen, chilled, and dry groceries. At the time of this, I was just finishing up an ambient produce path and was busy putting the loose produce in produce bags, which some were then bagged further for the deliveries. I had just tossed a bunch of bananas into a bag, figuratively of course. Can't bruise the customer's fruit, and had turned around to grab another bag for the next order, when I hear it, one of the many mating calls of the entitled species. I'm not entirely sure what it was, whether a throat clearing, a simple hey, or a quick excuse me, but it got my attention and I turned back around. As I turned, I came face to face with the male of this species, and what a majestic Ken he was. Probably not more than a few years older than myself, short beard, and looking upset. This is where I would say some form of greeting and say something along the lines of how can I help you, but I didn't even get a word out before this man, hereby abbreviated as K, started complaining. K, not for nothing, but if you're going to sell plums, there should be bags by them. Me, understandably confused and not really one for confrontation. I'm sorry. K interrupts. When you sell stuff like that, there should be bags nearby. I don't want to go looking all around the place looking for one. At this point, I took my time to look around the area to see where bags were. There were 2 dispensers on either end of the aisle the plums were in, nestled under some produce scales, but both were empty. There was usually a roll on the nearby banana display table as well, though I couldn't tell how full it was from my vantage point. 2 more dispensers hung on the overhang of the wet wall, where the cold produce was, both with bags in them. And of course, there was the dispenser I was literally standing next to, all within no more than 20 steps from the plums. This whole time, this Ken was complaining about the inconvenience of bags not being directly next to the plums, wondering, what do you expect me to do? Carry them one at a time? Me. Sorry. Now, I would have turned this into an I don't work here lady mini. Sawed by using my default, I don't work in this department, but I can talk to who does and let them know the situation. It's not up to me to decide where the bags go, and as I had already grabbed another bag for another loose produce item, I was in the process of opening it up with the intention of handling it to this man. But once again he interrupts me. K, it's too late now. I don't want any plums anymore. You lost a sale. I was about to say sorry once again, but apparently I had a look that said your refusal to purchase plums is not really tipping the scales in ways of hurting the store, but do you? So once again, before I could utter a word, I'm interrupted yet again. K, now really angry. You lost a sale, and you don't even care. And he walked away, leaving me dumbfounded for a moment, trying to process did he really say that. Yes, he really said that. The whole encounter lasted no more than a minute. Now I'm nervous for a moment, thinking he's about to go get a manager, but then I thought, if he's not going to get plums because he has to walk 10 to 15 feet for a bag, that's on him, and went about my business. I did end up telling a produce associate, and they laughed at the audacity of this Ken. Sorry there's no dramatic, let me see your manager, no assault or police being called, no over-the-top shouting. Just a little story about a Ken who just wanted to complain because he's special. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. All right, so there I was, just me and my mom hanging out at this lake she'd been raving about for weeks. She promised it was going to be a good day, a little mother-son bonding time. Now, my mom, she's the type who always finds these hidden gems off the beaten path, away from the usual crowd. We rolled up to this lake and it looked like something out of a postcard. Crystal clear water, surrounded by tall trees, casting shade in just the right spots. I was vibing with the serenity of it all, just soaking in the chill atmosphere. My mom, she's on her phone, probably gossiping with her sister or something. I was kicking back, throwing some pebbles into the water, when out of the blue, this lady storms up. Total Karen vibe, the haircut, the attitude, the whole package. She starts going on about how we're on private property, like she's the gatekeeper of the secret lake or something. I'm a chill guy, don't like drama, so I tell her it's cool, we'll bounce. But then my mom, she's a feisty one, tells Karen she's full of it, that this place ain't private. And that's when the real show starts. Karen, she goes from 0 to 100 real quick. I've never seen someone get so worked up about a lake. She's red in the face, veins popping, and I'm thinking, lady, it's just water. She gets all up in my mom's grill, and I'm like, whoa, Karen, back up. My mom, she's standing her ground, not letting Karen push her around. They're going back and forth like a tennis match of words. Then, out of nowhere, Karen does the unthinkable. She straight up grabs my mom and tosses her into the lake. Now, I'm a laid-back guy, but you don't mess with my mom. I'm seeing red at this point. I stride over, trying to keep my cool, but my blood's boiling. I get right up in Karen's face, and I'm like, you seriously just threw my mom in the lake? She smirks, thinking she's won or something, and tells me to leave before she throws me in too. Now, I ain't having that. I might be chill, but I ain't gonna let someone assault my mom and get away with it. I square up, give her this look like, you're done. I grab her, not violently, but firm, like enough to let her know I mean business. And then, without thinking, I toss her into the lake. Karma's a witch, ain't it? She hits the water, flailing and sputtering, and I'm just standing there feeling a mix of shock and satisfaction. I turn back to my mom, who's shaking off the water and looking at me like I'm both a hero and a maniac. I help her out, and we're both dripping wet, but we're laughing. It's absurd, like something out of a sitcom. But the story ain't over yet. Karen, now soaking wet and realizing she messed with the wrong pair, starts screeching about calling the cops. I beat her to it, pull out my phone, and dial 911. Yo, officers, you won't believe what just went down at this supposedly private lake. Karen over here thinks she owns the place, assaulted my mom, and got a taste of her own medicine. Send someone over, please. Cops show up, Karen's still yapping about rights and trespassing. My mom and I tell our side of the story, and thankfully, there were witnesses who saw the whole thing. Karen, she tries to spin some tale about being the victim, but the officers aren't buying it. Long story short, she gets slapped with assault charges, and we press charges for trespassing too. The officers are giving me that nod, like, good job standing up for your mom. It's surreal, like we're in a comedy with a moral lesson. We go back to our day a bit soggy but victorious. The lake, once a serene retreat, now has a legendary tale attached to it. Morale of the story: don't mess with a guy and his mom, especially when they're just trying to enjoy a peaceful day by the water. And that, my friends, is how Karen learned not to play with fire at the secret lake. My parents separated when I was 3 years and my sister 8 from that time. SD was not really in either of our lives as he moved to Capital City. This divorce was expected long time from mom's side of family as SD was abusive to my mom and sister. SD popped couple of times during the time leading to this event's surprise visit or me and Sis coming to him. My mom did unbelievably great job raising me, and Sis, a single mom, even thought me and Sis were constantly fighting. Fast forward to time when I was 19 and found a job in Capital City. I moved out within a week, which was hard on my mom and surprising on my sister. She always said that I would live with mom until my 30th. But honestly, I needed change in my life as I felt stuck in one place with no direction. I moved into flat with my friend and lived in the flat for almost 1 year. After some time, I started to looking into a place closer to my work as it was almost 2 hours of commute, which honestly sucked. I told that to my flatmate that I'm looking into something closer to work, and within a few weeks one of our friends was living with us. The flat was 2 bedrooms, 2 toilers, and huge living room with kitchen. I wasn't on the lease, and finding a flat was quite challenging as single male, so I called SD and asked if he does not know about someone who's renting. He proposed that I move into flat. He is living in, and I can stay at his as long as I want, so I did. Upon moving there, I found out that it was not his flat, but his colleague from work. Luckily, the guy was chill. I was paying rent, utilities, and food. After a few months, end of winter, I moved in, start of it. SD came to me and said that I have to move out, that he cannot bring witches. Not just some chick, but paid escorts, prostitutes, into the flat as I am there. During my stay there, he was getting his son my half-bro every second weekend as his baby mama kicked him out of flat. As I had quite a lot of colleagues, an awesome boss, and with seer luck, one of the colleagues' mate was looking for flat mate. I moved out a few weeks afterwards, saying, "If bitches are more important to you than you, son, this is the last time we speak." I went LC with SD, and after a few months, he started to blowing my phone, so I just put him into block, as my sister did a few years before me. Hold and behold, his side of family started to blowing my phone and social media that I should pick up his phone and spoke with him except my uncle, his brother, and his wife. They have 2 boys, and those sneaky little beggars love me for some reason. I replied to his sister that he has no idea what happened, and I strongly suggest her to leave it be, yet she ignored my suggestion and doubled down using her mom to do the same, so I cut them off as well. All was quiet for some time, but as 2020 rolled out of window, I got call from my sis that SD showed unannounced at her work. She lives and work 150 km from Capital City, and demanded her to apologize for cutting him from her life. As you can imagine, my sis ripped him a new one and sent him packing afterward. She called me up and told me what happened. I was flabbergasted, to say the least. I was working in corp office of one of the known giant internet-based enterprise, selling basically anything. I had gut feeling that he would try to show up at my work as well as he was working in public transportation, and it's possible that he saw me getting out or in at stop really close to my work, and yup, it happened. One lovely day I got call from reception that someone come to see me, and if I could go. Down. I asked who it is, and they said it's SED, so I just laughed and told them that I don't want to have anything to do with him, and he is bothering them to call police. In that time, I had view of the entrance, and I could see how pissed and angry he was, and I just laughed. SD waited for 2 hours for me to get off work, but sucks to be him, I was working for another 5 hours, so that wasn't happening. During the time, as I stated above, I was in contact with my uncle, and I was spending some quality time with me with them and boy I during few days over the years. After a few years, I landed a new position in company and was about to relocate it when I bumped into his ex. I was always on good term with her, and we just stared chatting. He told me that he stared dating a lady 15 years older than him, and they are planning to buy a house and all that. I just laughed, as I know I would be quite a distance from them. After moving and spending 1-2 years in new city, I moved to the same city as my sister lived in. I had to go to business trip abroad for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, I wrote to my cousin and asked him if he knew if SED would be at his mom's place, as I decided that the only victim who's suffering from this is my grandma, who does not deserve that. He told me that SD is working whole week, including weekends, so on my way back, I decided to surprise visit my grandma and his sister as she lives with her. I showed up unannounced as my cousin didn't spill the beans of my plans. Grandma was super happy that she saw me after well over 8 years, and I had talked with my aunt. I told her that I'm willing to talk with her, but she needs to stop putting her nose where it did not belong and keep it shut from SD, and she agreed. We talked, including Grandma, for almost 8 hours, and I had to leave. Fast forward to beginning of 2023, where my uncle had his 50th birthdays, and I decided to surprise him with my presence at the party and bottle of his favorite rum. I called his wife and asked if SD will be there, and she told me that they are out of the country and she will keep my visit secret not to spoil the surprise for my uncle. I also checked with additional members of family from his side to make sure, and it was true. I followed through and showed up at his birthday party, and you could see how happy he was that I was there. As we started to drink and smoke cigars with Uncle, quite early alcohol loosened up his tongue, and he told me that SD tried multiple times to convince him to call me up for a visit, and SD would be waiting there to confront me. But Uncle straight up told him to shove this idea up his butt, as he didn't want to destroy our relationship because of his and his son's sake. During the party, daughter of SD's soon-to-be wife showed up. I didn't know her, and she did not know who I was. No, we are not related whatsoever, as she is older than me. and as the party was going to end, I took a bottle of rum and went to garden. To my surprise, she showed up, and after half an hour we hooked up. In summer, I took 3 weeks of vacation and decided that it's time to finally change my last name to my mom's maiden name as Big Fat Line from SD. Well, my auntie, uncle's wife, wasn't happy saying what would Grandpa think, but I reminded her that he is long dead and his point of view would be irrelevant either way. SD did not try to contact me nor my side of family, which I'm grateful for, and I feel like I'm starting to finally live without need of looking behind my shoulder. Backstory. I'm a semi-professional audio engineer and ditto nutcase. I've always been fascinated with synthesizers, vandalists for the win, and over the years this grew into a passion for digital audio in general. I studied the techniques. I became quite active within the field, and slowly but steadily I also managed to set myself up with a nice home studio. Right now my tools of trade are Ableton Live Suite Edition, combined with FL Studio. These are 2 so-called digital audio workstations, which basically means so much that these programs allow me to work with audio on my PC in the most extensive way possible. Because a keyboard and a mouse can only do so much with regards to playing music, I also rely on 2 so-called MIDI controllers. The Ableton Push 2, in combination with Native Instruments Machine Controller, backed by Company 13 Collector's Edition. To top this off, my eventual audio is generated thanks to my Complete Audio 6.2 audio interface, which is hooked up to a pair of JBL Studio monitors. Meaning, to put it simple, I have quite a musical powerhouse under my fingertips. One of my favorite genres to play with is orchestral. I love setting up ensembles and then playing and recording. Seriously, the only way you'd realize that I didn't try to cram a whole orchestra into my somewhat small apartment is because of the way I play, but most definitely not by the way it sounds. Which is also where the semi comes into play. I work with professional equipment, and sometimes I even manage to earn some extra cash by providing certain services to others. Mastering audio, creating specific multimedia solutions using the Max programming environment. But in the end, it's essentially still one huge passionate hobby of mine. Never underestimate the kind of emotions which sound can trigger. Samples and synthesis. There are basically 2 general ways to work with digital audio. Using instruments which can create sounds themselves, or by using existing audio data, and then use that to build up something bigger. We refer to such audio data as samples, and environments like Ableton Live as well as L Studio provide tons of ways to use such samples and turn them into something which is sometimes totally different, but most of the time, something completely awesome. Seriously, if you ask me, then sampling is basically a bit of an art form. One which is pretty difficult to master but can be so much rewarding. That orchestral setup I mentioned earlier. Yeah, mostly powered by a sample collection. Now, I'm by far an expert in this field, but most certainly a huge fan of it. I even got myself a small audio field recorder, the Yamaha Pocket Track 24, which allows me to, well, record sounds. And so we get to my previously nutcase comment. Take, for example, fountains. A lot of people, myself included, can marvel at their beauty, but then I also soon start wondering, could I somehow capture the sound of this? Literally, the sound? I've made tons of recordings, copied them onto my PC, and then started experimenting with those using the software previously mentioned. Ableton Live, FL Studio, and Ableton Live. The sound of love? My girlfriend and me have been dating for years already, and we're actually pretty happy with the way things are. We both have our own home, our own lives, but still keep in constant contact, and we go see each other every weekend. I suppose it's our age at work here, both well in our 50s. Now, normally we go visit each other on a Friday and then spend the whole weekend there until Monday. Today, the both of us got caught up in a WhatsApp chat, and we were both really looking forward to seeing each other again tomorrow, Friday. So my Jeff decided that, you know what? I'm coming over right now. Happy days. I even decided that, know what? Then I'm going to make it a bit more special. Even bought her some flowers because why not? Now, I definitely got caught up in my mood swing, and I'll be fully honest. This was an utterly silly idea no matter how you put it. I still had fun though. After I got my GF a bouquet of flowers, I got kind of in the mood and then started to wonder what the sound of love could be like. Now, sure, there's the classic G team, but that's taking a bit too far for me. So, since I more than often keep my audio recorder on me, I suddenly got this idea that Why not record the whole encounter and then see what audio could be matched against still being very much in love? Utterly silly or maybe stupid, you say. I'm not arguing. The incident. So there I was, sitting on a bench near the bus stop with a bouquet of flowers on my lap, and when I heard the bleep on my phone that my GF was within a few kilometers of me. So I grabbed my audio recorder and turned it on. In case you're wondering, my GF Amy and GPS track each other. We always turn this on during dates so that it's much easier for the other to know where you are. So if there's a delay in public transport, for example, we don't have to worry about the other getting worried or such, because they can see what's up. And then it happened. Convo's translated from Dutch, but the funny thing is, the excuse me was literal. Excuse me, but could I borrow your phone real quick? I need to call my boss, some woman suddenly asks me. I look up and see someone looking at me in expectation. So I tell them, no, sorry, this isn't a phone, and even then I'm not going to lend my phone to some stranger. But this is an emergency, she tells me. Look, just set it on speakerphone and I'll give you the number to call, please? And right now I'm honestly getting a bit annoyed here. Once again, this is not a phone, I tell her. Please leave me alone. There's a bit more talk going back and forth until I plain out ask her why the heck she won't take no for an answer. Finally, she gives up, but unfortunately now takes a seat on the other end of the bench, and sure enough, for some reason keeps grumbling and making noises that are easily getting recorded. Why me? I decided to put up with it and just ignore it, and then joyful moment next, because the bus pulled up. A flower bouquet in one hand, my recorder in the other, a grumbling Karen next to me, and finally, my GF getting out of the bus, spotting me in the flowers, and she quickly runs up to me yelling, "Oshie!" My GF is Japanese. Well, Dutch actually, but has a Japanese origin, emigrated as a child. And we always talk a mixture of Dutch and English between us, and over the years, my Japanese is also somewhat catching up. She was really appreciative of me bringing flowers 3. Next moment, we're kissing and I'm over the moon. First, this is an awesome start to our date if you ask me, and second, I was pretty sure my recorder caught her whole comment as well. Yeah, I am a bit of a nerd, and just when I was briefly wondering how all this would sound. Excuse me, do you have a phone I could borrow? It's an emergency? The annoying Karen from before is now for some reason asking my GF for her phone. I was pissed. My GF looks at me. I look at her and she has obviously seen my annoyance, because the next moment she pulls away from me and gives the Karen a load of Japanese protests and insult. Honestly, the only thing I recognized was baka, which, in context, can mean idiot, but everything else went way past me. Sorry I asked, the woman says. It was just a question. No, it's harassment, I tell her. You've been nagging me about it almost since I got here, and you obviously don't seem to understand what no means. The Song of the Wild Karen. I got so annoyed and caught up that I completely forgot that I still had a recording audio recorder in my hands. In fact, it was my GF who suddenly asked me during our walk towards my house why I was holding my pocket track in my hands, which is when I told her that I was having a silly mood and trying to capture the sound of love. Next moment, I get an almost crushing hug. And then she says the magic words, well, at least you did get the mating call of the wild Karen, and I'm like, wait a sec here, she's right. Now, obviously, we're not going to use some random's voice without their permission to do stuff, even if it is a Karen. But should be okay to share the lyrics, right? We even got Maiku Hatsune involved. I have a Vocaloid license and got that sound bank too. This is probably going to look really stupid, but lyrics of the Karen song. Karen. Excuse me, it's harassment. Karen, no, excuse me, I need to call my BF, Oshii, GF. Me, it's harassment. Karen, but I need to call my BF, Oshii. Me, but this is not a phone? Karen, I rustling sound need omnia sound starting call ring ring sound my boyfriend. Me, but this is not a phone? Karen, need to call Belgian female group vocals.
What you be carrying? Hello, yeah, Tui.
Romeo. Me, but this is still not a phone? GF, tons of Japanese protests. Karen, sorry I asked. Explosion sound. Yeah, this was stupid. We had a ton of laughter over this, though. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.